So really, really excited to have the gorgeous Nikki Brown with us today. And Nikki is known as the communication stylist, and I have been a fan of yours for quite a while now. I think I've been reading your blogs for a little while and first stumbled across you when I think you were about to launch your course about copy. And I remember a blog post or a Facebook post or something about you traveling, and you'd just taken David Simon Garland's course, and you were going to his wedding or something, and then you were just going to write it and get it out there. And I think that was the first time I came across them. So could you give us a little bit of an introduction of kind of who you are for those who don't know who you are, what you do, and why you absolutely love what you do?
Yep. So I started my business 2 years ago, like last week. So right now when we're recording this, April 2015. My bachelor's and master's degrees are both in communication studies. So literally the social science of communication and how and why we communicate the way we do and connect the way that we do. And I was inspired to start my business. It wasn't necessarily like to start a business. It was just, I realized at the beginning of 2013, I chose my word of the year was faith as opposed to a resolution, because I knew my husband was about to be spending more than half the year on the other side of the country. And I didn't want to be like a total basket case with our toddler at home when he was gone. So I was like, it's time to root into what's not going to change regardless of what circumstances are going on here. And when I started to do that, I just started to notice what I always call divine breadcrumbs that had always been leading me to the path. You know, like there's this golden thread of like whatever it is that you're doing that people are always asking you for help on, or whatever comes naturally. And for me, that's been communication from forever. And so that's when I decided, okay, I wasn't sure if it'd be a blog, a book, or a business. And then I decided, let's go business. Who would pay for help with communication? Well, entrepreneurs, because your booty's on the line. Because if you're not communicating your value effectively, then you're losing business potentially all the time. So that's what started it all. And I did some free sessions because I was a little nervous. Even though I had 2,000 hours of teaching at the college level almost, I was still nervous. Like, do I know what I'm doing enough to help people? And sure enough, after the first free call, she was like, okay, how do I pay you? And I was like, good question. I have no idea. I guess I need a PayPal link. What do I do? And then less than 2 months later, I had over 90 people signed up to work with me one-on-one over that first summer. And then I worked with 160 people over that first 8 months. And then I translated everything I learned into a course about copy.
So it was quite an intense kind of quick period then you did it all in, which was so good. And I love having the word for the year. I always pick a word for the year. So again, it really helps you kind of, mine was focus for this year. And it's just amazing how when you do pick that one word, everything starts to fall into place around it.
I could use that as a word. I think that one served me really well.
I think it's definitely, especially when you come from a kind of creative background and what you do, focus is definitely something that I need to work on all the time, because it's always the really new ideas. It's like, I want to do this and I want to do that. So with your you're just saying then about how kind of the entrepreneurs do really need help communicating their value. And I think that's something that a lot of people do struggle with, especially when it comes to the whole, if you've got writer's block, how do you overcome knowing what you should share, or how to, when you're kind of sharing too much, or even I have it sometimes when you just feel like, okay, I know this stuff and I know a lot about what I'm doing, but how do I communicate? How do I get that out there in a way that people can understand and connect with? And when am I sharing too much information, or am I not sharing enough information? And I go into my overthinking alert, and that can stop people getting their content out there because they think about it too much. So have you got any kind of like tips or how you go about overcoming that situation?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things. And that's why like lesson 1 of A Course About Copy, that's the first thing I start with. And I have it free on my blog, so I'll give you a link so you can link to it as well. But like 4 tips of getting your mind right before you even start. Because like I could give you all the recipes in the world to help give you like a scaffolding to hang your words on. But if you can't just sit down and make yourself right, that's not going to do you any good. So one of the first things I always talk about is to choose your words wisely. And I mean like the words that are going on between here and here, and the words that you tell yourself. Because if you say, and I'm guilty of saying this, like it takes me so long, like, oh my gosh, it takes me so long to do a blog post, or I'm not a very good writer. If you say things like that, you're just going to prove your own theory to yourself. So if you just flip the script and say, this isn't so bad, or, I am getting better at it every time I do it, I get better, like something that actually believes, then that is a good thing to do. And then when it comes to writer's block, again, I have a post that has a whole bunch of ideas, but one thing in particular that helps me is kind of like play hard to get with your productivity. Like be like, okay, I'm only going to write for 5 minutes today. And then you clear out all of the distractions, close all the tabs and all the apps and put your phone away or unless your phone is your timer, but set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes, just like the hardest part of working out is getting your shoes on to get out of the house for whatever you do. And just set the timer and write for 5 minutes. And then once you do it, you'll be like, okay, I could do 10. Okay, I could do 15. And then you'll get on a roll. But the only way to do it, or there's a quote somebody said, like the best way to do something is simply to start. And that's the same thing with writing. You're never going to get faster, more comfortable with it till you just do it, and the same thing with video and the same thing with actually talking to real life people. It's like you just have to do it and practice and put yourself out there to be a little uncomfortable, but you're going to get more and more comfortable the more practice and exposure you get.
So I love that. I like the whole kind of just put your training shoes on to get out the door, because it's always, if you start when you've started, you know that you will do a little bit more, and you always think, well, 5 minutes, okay, write for 5 minutes, maybe write a Facebook post and then turn it into bigger content or something like that. I've seen that's for me, that's worked quite well, or doing Instagram or something small and then going, oh, actually I can progress that a bit more.
Totally. And I've been doing that too. I've been looking back at like comments and replies in Facebook groups where someone asks a question and then I answer it. I'm like, that really could be a whole blog post, and just, it's like you've already done it. So again, whatever you need to do to trick yourself into doing it, just try it, and experiment.
So when it comes to when you've got an idea for a course and you've been doing what you're doing for a while, and you know that you have this value that you can package up into a one-to-many kind of product, how do you then start to go about communicating that to the world? So you've been perhaps just doing a lot of one-to-one work, and I know a lot of people that will be watching this will be taking their first step to kind of creating their first course. So how do you go from changing that kind of conversations that you're having with people, where you're going to be, okay, I'm no longer going to be doing this one-to-one with you or sharing this information. Now I'm going to start to try and move you down this path of coming and joining a course with me. How do you go about kind of communicating that to your list or to the world or out there, however you're going to be doing it?
Well, first of all, it's really exciting, and I'm very excited for the people who are taking that step, because it is totally a game changer, and you have to be okay with it. Like, energetically from your side, you have to know that you're doing a service to the world by packaging up everything that you know. Because honestly, that was one of my reasons why I created the course, because I love teaching, that was my background anyway, but also I was like, what if something happens to me? And I've been building all of this experience working specifically with entrepreneurs, and then it's like my husband and my son, if something happens to me, then that's kind of it, because it all went with me, which is really morbid. But I was like, really, I just want to have it documented, or what if I forget it or something, like I just wanted to have it all in one place. So it's so much better when you do have it and it's streamlined and it is all there in one place, because right now I know if someone needs help, I can help them write their site. All of my lessons combined are less than 3.5 hours total, like all of them. The average lesson is like 23 minutes. And that's a much bigger service than like, okay, let's have all these sessions, 10 sessions for me to work with you. Instead, I just can say, here's a resource. And so energetically, you have to know it's pretty great. What you're about to create for them is amazing. And if you feel like, oh, it's kind of a drag, then when you communicate it to people, they're going to be like, oh, that sucks. You're not going to work with me one-on-one anymore, So it's all in your attitude and your spirit behind it. But I started asking people, what questions do you have? I already knew what questions they had because I had worked with so many people and hundreds of hours of one-on-ones. So I kind of already knew this is the main stuff that they're going to need to work on. And then just as I was going, I was sharing and letting them know, because it's exciting. People like to be part of the journey, and you don't have to pretend like it's going to be perfect right out of the gate. I considered my first launch to be my first pancake, and I thought it was kind of like a dress rehearsal. Like when I first launched my free training series, which was at the end in January 2014, I was like, okay, 600 people, just no big deal. Let's just see how it goes. I've never done something like this. And then by the end of it, it was like 1,200 people, the next week or something. And it's just fun. You just learn as you go, and people realize you're human, and maybe you'll send out a weird email by mistake or something, and that's fine too. Like you just can't be too afraid to start. There's no better time than the time that you'll finally sit down and do it. Like that's the perfect time to do it.
And I love that as well, just because so many people have all these ideas that they want to do and never actually get it out there for this fear of, okay, it needs to be perfect. And although you can tell yourself over and over again that it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be perfect, you need to get it out there, sometimes you just do stop yourself still from putting it out for fear of being seen as not this perfect person, which is just a crazy thing. And you've got so much good stuff, you need to share it, don't you?
I was just having this conversation with a friend today who's about to create a course, and I was like, also just step back and take the pressure off of yourself, because it really doesn't ever need to be perfect. But it really doesn't need to be perfect the first time out of the gate, because you need to get feedback on it. I mean, that's the other thing. We're not communicating or teaching or training in a vacuum. It only matters if people learn from it, or if people get results, or if people understand it. And so especially when you're creating the course for the first time, I don't recommend doing it exactly how I did it, because it was freaking crazy. And I was recording videos and sending them out like 5 hours later. Like, it was just, I did 8 lessons in 4 weeks, and it was crazy. But if you do actually record the videos first, and you record the lessons first, and then you do the live round with people so that you have like that live focus group and the feedback, then you can take all those notes. Like, okay, these are the questions they asked a lot. These are the things, this is how I can revamp the lessons. Then you have a really nice, tight, clean version that's streamlined to then launch, to the bigger world. And that's what I did whenever I created a course about copy. I did the first pancake version with the founding members. We had 51 founding members. And then I just honestly kind of pooped out and hibernated for like a few months. And then finally I created it again, and it was so much better the second time because I had the feedback and I knew, oh, this is what I'd like to do differently. You won't know that until you get the first version out. I felt like it was having twins several months apart.
Yeah. Something I always I kind of say to people that are going through my courses to do a little trial kind of secret group run, because it's really important to get that. And it's very similar, I suppose, to when you did your first pancake version. I like that analogy for it. That you've just got to get it out there, because although no matter how much what you think that you're communicating in the way that you need to have the live feedback from people to help make sure that they're understanding what you're doing and that it is actually helpful, because that's the real end goal, isn't it? To be able to really have something that is valuable and helpful to people.
Right. And to build your confidence when you're telling the world about it, you're like, okay, I could say it's great all day long, but then when so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so have X result and they're raving about it, and just because they want to, then that speaks volumes,
So I suppose really is there no kind of big secret to be able to kind of communicate? There's no real formula to follow in that sense, that you need to start and practice and get comfortable and confident in what you're saying in the way that you're saying it. And only doing it and starting is going to help you get that feedback so that you can kind of then tweak and change and refine as you're going.
Yeah, I think so, because it's not rocket science, it's social science, So even what works for me, and I have like in a course about copy, it's all about recipes to help you present, instead of just like, blah, here are all my words, here's all of my information, like it's important to be authentic and to be you and communicate the way you actually would, but you also need to have a clear structure and purpose to where it makes sense to people. So that's what I help people with. But in general, when it comes to communicating, what works for me and the people who would love to buy whatever I have may not work for you and whoever your people are. So there's really no one size fits all thing. It's just about, again, getting out there and testing and experimenting and seeing what works and then restyle it later. And even what works and feels comfortable to you now may feel different 5 months from now. Like when I was re-recording my videos the second time and I looked back at like the first lesson 1 of A Course About Copy, I was like, how was that just 5 months ago? Because I basically felt like I was looking at A Course About Copy with braces, like as a preteen or something. Like it was so awkward. I was like, how did I even think? And why did they think that was good? But they did. And that's why I love my founding class, because they were so great. And they were like, this is great. But in reality, like just the more you do it, the better you'll get. So give yourself more tries. Don't expect it to be like, can't do it till it's really, really good, because then as soon as it's out there, you're going to want to change something. And you should until you feel good about it eventually. But first, get it out there.
So that the following a structure and format, I love the idea of having that. And when I was asking questions with my group of people that this is going to go out to start with. And they had a big question always, and it comes up quite a lot, around sales pages. And I think that's probably a question you all get asked a lot. But is there a real formula, a secret, a flow that you really should follow when creating kind of the perfect sales page for whether it's a product or a launch or a course or anything that you're putting out there? How do you structure that so that it flows?
So I have a recipe in A Course About Copy, and like a work with me recipe, and anybody who wants to see like my sales page recipe can just look at my sales page and you can kind of see how I do it, because everything I do falls into a similar structure, which is like the attention getter at the top, which is their language and using their words to describe the problem. And then reassuring them that you have a solution to the problem, then introducing and spelling it out exactly what it is, those really clear expectations, and then giving them some kind of action. So a sales page is a lot like that, and then you just overcome more objections. So you're adding in those frequently asked questions, like you're in her brain, like what would she be asking at this point? You know, if she didn't click that first add to cart button, she's still unsure. So how can I ease more of her doubts? And so whether that's more social proof, more frequently asked questions, if you have a guarantee or something, then you always want to make sure you're ending with another add to cart. So you don't want to do like a whole bunch of frequently asked questions and then there's no button. So it's like, oh, that's cool. Squirrel. And she goes to another tab. Like you want to make sure you always give her that very clear call to action. But the main things, and let me see if I can remember, but I normally say there's 4 things that people want to see on your sales page, whatever order you put them in. But number 1 is clear value. It obviously needs to make sense. Like, this is something I need. You've painted the before and after picture, and I know that this is a solution to a problem I have, or it fulfills the desire I have, and you've painted that picture. So there's a clear value so they can see why it's worth whatever it's worth. Clear expectations are huge, because there's this micro anxiety of spending money with someone that you've never met. I mean, that's what blew my mind when 90-something people gave me hundreds of dollars before we had ever met. I didn't even have a site yet, but I was out there connecting with people and building that know, like, and trust factor, and not being a total scaredy cat, not typing or engaging with anybody. And so building that credibility. So somewhere on your sales page, you need to have your chops, you know, so whether it's your experience in this particular field, or your education or certification, or how many people you've worked with, it needs to be clear on that page that you know what you're talking about. So clear value, clear expectations. Oh, I think I just merged clear expectations with credibility. The other thing I was going to say about expectations is, like, if you have a sales video or you're doing a webinar, and then ease that micro anxiety by saying, here's what it's going to look like when you click this. Here's what it's going to look like whenever you click this. And you just literally walk them through so they have no unanswered questions. And then the last piece, clear value, clear expectations, credibility. It's just intuition and personality. I mean, some people, I literally had somebody when I was doing my launch, my back to school kind of summer school launch, where I saw her subscriber notification come into my email. And then 15 minutes later, I saw her order come in. And I was like, did you just like resubscribe? Because sometimes people resubscribe and it's like a Ferris wheel. People keep getting on. I'm like, people, it's the same thing over and over, but they keep getting on. She's like, no, I just saw it and it's exactly what I needed, you know? And it's a $1,000 course. And she just 15 minutes after getting to see me for the first time was like, this is it. Because sometimes people are just going to have that feeling. And so you also want to consider, as you create the sales page, like, what's the vibe and what's the mood that's going to be in my course, and how can I showcase that, whether it's in the design and the visuals and not just the words, but what's between the lines. And that's really valuable too. So however you order it, make sure you do have clear value, clear expectations, ease that anxiety, credibility, and something with your personality so that they can use their intuition to push them one way or another.
I think that with the personality thing seems to be a big buying trigger factor for a lot of people, because I mean, I've come across when I'm out there looking at things and you say, oh, I just love the feel of this, and it just makes you want to buy it. And I mean, the amount of times I scroll through sales pages without reading anything sometimes, just because and you've got that feeling. So would you say, is there a particular way in the run-up to perhaps going up to your launch and before anyone even gets to a kind of sales page, are there certain things that you could be doing right now to help engage with and attract and have those conversations, so that when people do get to that sales page, they have that feeling with you already?
There's lots of things. I mean, the most basic thing you can do, even when your course isn't created yet, is to put out some kind of regular content, even if it's not on your blog, but it's just emails, or even if it's not emails, if it's Facebook, but just something where people are hearing from you regularly, and it's not just like all of a sudden you've been, and then I have something to sell. You know, it's like about building that relationship, and even if it's not specifically about the course, just by building that relationship and having that mere exposure effect where you're sharing whatever you're sharing, then I think that's going to be valuable. For me, I knew from my courses, I needed a mutual inspiration society to actually inspire me to get it done. So that's why when I was redoing it the second time, I was like, forget this. I need a free Facebook group, and I need to see people who are excited about whatever I'm going to create. And I decided I was going to do 5 days originally. My friend Amber McHugh, who does the Planathon, is great, but then I thought that stresses me out to do so much in such a short time. So I decided to do 5 weeks, 5-ish weeks is what I said. And I opened up a free Facebook group where I was adding value by doing these micro lessons, like literally just 2-minute lessons every day. And that was just, again, inspired by them, because I asked, what do you want to learn? And then they said so many things. And I was like, oh, shoot, I wasn't going to cover all that. And I was like, but I can. So that's why I decided to do all the little micro lessons. And it was great. And a lot of them ended up buying because of the value I was providing there. So you have to do whatever's fun for you, whether it's a free Facebook group for a limited time, or it's videos, or it's just some kind of email series, like whatever you need to do that's fun for you, that gives them an actual representative sample of what they would experience in the course. That's all going to help lead to them deciding. And I think it's also important to realize, now that I've been over a year into it, sometimes, like I said, people are going to go through your launches, and then it's going to take a little while before they buy. So also just don't get totally bummed out if people don't buy right off the bat, because I've had a lot of people join, and I can see in Infusionsoft like all of their tags from all these other launches, but it was just a matter of the right time. And you don't want anybody to feel rushed to join you, like you want them to come at the right time. You're not desperate. You're the boss, and you're not desperate. You want the right people, and you deserve the right people, because especially in a course, it's not like you can kick them out unless somebody does something illegal, which is weird, and hopefully no one would do that, but like it's kind of a commitment, so that's why I'm like, I want to make sure that you know what you're signing up for. So even when they click the add to cart button on my sales page, I have another page that I call the Dream Client Filter, the yes page, where they go through and it's like, okay, here's what you're signing up for. This is what's going on, right? And then they say yes. And when they click that, then I feel like, okay, you know what you're getting into. This is good. We're in it. We're part of the family. So those are all a squillion different things to consider.
I love that. I hadn't thought about that second page as being kind of a bit of a filter, I suppose. But actually, it's so true. You do really want people kind of have always, when you're first setting out, I know that you have this like, I'm launching, I want, as many people into it as possible. And this, as people get kind of really bogged down with numbers and seeing these big figure launches, because there are so many people doing these amazing kind of, huge, and you've had your own huge launches, and that you get thinking, well, I need all these people, I need all these customers, I need new members. But I know that that's the wrong mindset for a lot of people to come in. You don't actually need or want those people. All you really want are the people that you're going to be able to best help. And that doesn't matter. Those numbers don't matter really at the end of it. You want to be getting, if you've got 1%, if you've got 100 people, if you've got 1,000 people, as long as you're delivering value and you're making that experience really worthwhile for yourself and your customers, that's where the feeling needs to come from instead.
It's all about the dream client, which is what I was starting off with when I said I wanted to help people attract their dream clients. And I had 2 dream clients at the time when I made that up as my catchphrase thing. But it's the same thing, because I'm obsessed with the people in A Course About Copy, and even one day if other people are like, hey, I have several of them who are recruiting their buddies, but it makes me feel good to know that even when other people are first hearing about it from someone else, if they come to my sales page, they're not getting to that order form until they have clicked yes, I'm totally down with everything that you just listed here, because again, it's it is a digi lifetime, however, whatever lifetime means in your legal terms, which hopefully you have legal terms too. But it's a commitment. It's not just a 1 hour, one-off session like I used to do. It's okay, we're in this, so it's important to keep quality in mind too. You can have quality and quantity for sure, definitely. But you just have to have those clear communication and expectations in place.
That's brilliant, yeah. So with your big launches, you've had kind of some very successful launches. What would be your kind of one tip or thing that if you were starting out again now, and you could give yourself one lesson that you've learned from how to deal with and create and have a successful launch, what would be your kind of biggest tip to yourself?
Gosh, it's hard because they've all been so different, and they've all been really crazy and stressful and like exhilarating, but really stressful. Like the first one, it was a very clean, 3-part video series. And then I was sending the emails, and then, like I said, I had like 1,200 people that I sent it out to, and 51 people bought. And that was like, whoa, amazing. So then now I have a whole lot more people on my list, but it's not like the numbers have doubled either. So it's like, it's been a little different, and I don't know exactly what to attribute that to. But like the one in August, we had 85 people join, and then there were like 100 who joined prep school, because what I ended up doing after all those little videos in the free Facebook group is I wrapped them into like a starter course called A Course About Copy Prep School. And so people could pay $199, and that would eventually apply when they wanted to upgrade to the full course, because so many people were like, I want to do it, but I just can't get in right now, or shoot, I missed all the videos because whatever. And so I created a little feeder option, which is another food for thought that you might want to create one day. But that one, it was all about that community and the momentum and the buzz. Although, to be honest, the buzz really died down towards the end. It was like really strong in the first week and maybe week and a half. You don't want to provide so much that people feel overwhelmed or weighed down by it either, or they feel guilty because they're not soaking up all the goodness you have to offer. So you have to keep that in mind too. And then I had a really crazy great promotion at the end of the year. I added 45 people in the last week of the year with just some emails, just some like, hey, this is going to be the last call for the class of 2014, like our founding year. And I threw in like a bonus, some bonus calls, like 2 bonus calls. I think that was it. Maybe just 1. And 45 people joined just from some emails. So then that goes to be like, okay, it can really be that simple. It doesn't have to be this big production. And then in February, I did another free Facebook group and a webinar. So, I mean, here's the thing. I don't even have my own system for launching. I've tried so many different ways, and I think that's kind of the thing. It's like, just try it one way that feels good and feels fun to create. Go with it and see, and just experiment as you go. I mean, really. And then I have the evergreen rolling where eventually, like 1 to 3 people may join in a given week, and that's good, just kind of in the background. But for sure, most people need to have a deadline because it's just human nature, but you don't have to be like cheesy and weird about it either. You can be like, look, we need deadlines. I know I need deadlines, so I think you probably need deadlines, so we're just going to slap a deadline on this baby. And then, that's what we need to get off the fence. So that's probably like the number one lesson, is to not mess around with that. People need deadlines.
I like that honesty around the deadline as well. Like, there's no need to kind of make up some crazy weird reason for having a deadline. You've got to
right.
We need a deadline.
Right. It just helps you decide, like I know for me, I do need a deadline. So that's why, like in my evergreen sequence, there's a timer, but it's like I have a first chance offer. Like if they sign up when they first hear about it in that first week, then they get some first chance bonuses, like yay for you for knowing a good course when you see it. And if you don't, that's fine too. But I'm just putting a deadline on this one special offer so that And then, again, I'm not trying to rush anybody in or make anyone panic and feel like anxiety-ridden to get in there. I want people to feel really expansive and excited whenever they join, for the possibility of what they're going to get whenever they get to work.
And with the launches, it's like not just one big launch. I know a lot of people seem to focus on having this one amazing, massive launch that changed everything. But actually, it's a bit of a series, of a sequence of launches that build up to it. And never just, you're not putting it out there, launching once, and then forgetting about it. There's a rolling launch in that sense.
Right.
Yeah. So with how you kind of communicate that on a regular basis, do you find that it's a bit tricky to go from that kind of launch mode to then having the evergreen sequence in? How do you kind of manage the way that you communicate with either your list or with the outside world? How do you go through? Is there a process that you go through for that?
If I was more on the ball, then I would have a process for it, but I don't. It's like, oh, shoot, it's done, and now I have to rig everything back up and connect all the evergreen stuff, because for a moment, I literally had an email that went out when I started the free Facebook group and was doing the webinar that said, we interrupt this email sequence or this video series to bring you something better, which was the webinar in the Facebook group. And then we just hooked everybody who was midway through the videos pick right back up where the videos left off. And so that's really all I did. But the thing is, again, that I have to realize, and again, it's just with perspective of a year, like I said, these people have to know they're just signing up for the same thing over and over again. The videos have not changed since I made them in a week span in January. I recorded part of the video in the Navy Lodge in Connecticut while we were visiting my husband when he was on the other side of the country. And I was standing up in like a hotel closet / bathroom, and I had my laptop on the luggage. Like, it's the same video. So, and it's the same frequently asked questions, and it's the same sales page. Like, it's the same thing, but people just know, like I said, it has to be the right time. Maybe they didn't even read it the first time, so you can't feel weird about saying the same thing over and over, because it is what it is. And if people are signed up, they can always unsubscribe, if they don't want to hear about it anymore, but they're still there. So I'm like, you're still here, so I'm going to tell you again, here's what I have to offer. If it's the right time, then come on over.
That's okay. I think that's something that always pops up as well, is this feeling that you have to communicate the same message in a different way over and over again. But actually, no, you don't have to. Saying the same, it's the same thing. It doesn't have to be new content every time that you deliver it.
Right. If people are signing up again and they know that your course is still your course, then like, what do they expect? Like, no, you do not get a custom email sequence every time just because you're having a hard time making a decision. I will still tell you the same information. And whenever it's right, you can come on over. We're saving you a seat, But I just realized, like, just in the last couple of rounds, I realized no, because especially for me, I put so much thought into every word in every email. And so I'm like, dang, that is good. I can't say it any better than that. So I'm not going to try, like the 3 months ago, Nikki knew and she was on the ball. So let's just let her do her thing. And we're going to keep that email.
Okay, love that. So, well, I always like to kind of sum up towards the end there with one thing that everyone could do today that they can take away from what we've been talking about and take away from how they're going to be communicating to start having better conversations and make stronger connections and have more success attracting customers. What's one thing everyone can kind of go away from right now, and it's evening, middle of the night where you are, but it's the first thing in the morning where I am. What can we do today to really kickstart that kind of better conversations and making stronger connections with people?
I would recommend starting a copy bank. And so this is something that I talk about in a course about copy because it's huge. Yes, you want to use your words and communicate in the way that you actually communicate. But to get their attention, to attract them, you really do need to know exactly how they describe the problem that you solve. And so if you do nothing else, one thing you can do is to go legally stalk your potential dream clients and students and start figuring out how do they describe the problem that you solve. Like, what do they love about the dream solution? What do they hate the most about the struggle that they're in? And literally just start a Google Doc or a Word document or an Evernote file, whatever works for you, to just start keeping track of how they describe it. And so you can do your copy bank by either listening or reading like that or asking. And you could do a survey and whatever, but some people are like, I don't have anyone to survey. And then sometimes it's just annoying when people are like, fill out my survey. And there's no benefit to people filling out the survey. Like, I started my business by offering free sessions as a thanks for the survey. So I had a whole bunch of people reply to the survey, So it's like, if you're doing something like that, then offer it. But it's also just as simple as knowing one particular person and talking to her on the phone or Skype. It doesn't even have to be digital. Like, just talk to somebody and be like, what would be your dreamiest solution for this? Like, what really frustrates you about this? And then use her language. Just be a really good listener, because we all just want it to be about me, 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 me. How can you help me? How does this apply to me? So when you're a really good listener and you're really paying attention to how she describes what she loves, hates, and whatever, then that's the perfect starting point for any page of your site. The beginning of every lesson video, when you're drawing her in to let her know, because even in your lesson videos, it's important to still get her attention, even though she's already a customer. At the start of every video, you need to be like, all right, if you're really struggling with that about page by now, here's what we're going to talk about. It's never going to fail you to be a good listener to people and pay attention to what they're actually caring about and struggling with.
Love that. I'm going to go and start putting everything into a copy bank myself. Great idea.
And eventually you won't need to. Eventually it'll all be in there and you won't even need it anymore, but it's great training wheels,
Yeah, Yeah, it's a brilliant place to have it all in one place, rather than kind of drifting out of the conversations that you have with people, and keep connecting in your Facebook groups, and always listening and picking up on the way that people are communicating and the words that they use themselves around what you're talking about. But actually having a file or folder somewhere to really just store that is just such a simple but easy thing to have, isn't it? So it's a brilliant place to. So that's fabulous. Well, thank you so much. I think I will leave it there now today, because I don't want to overrun too long. I think we've done about our time now. I was just looking up at my clock over in the corner and thinking, wow, the time has gone.
Time flies when you're talking about courses.
Yeah.